So I wanted to share a little bit about mm, my stories because I don't have one story. I have a lifeline that has so many stories attached to it. But one of the things I wanted to share is I was not a compliant child. When the system of separation would show its face to me, which it did starting very early, I became non-compliant. And I refused to go along with the program. And I wasn't silent. And I was very, very empowered from a very early age. And that was challenging. So I think where that got started was very soon after I was born. And both of my parents were cigarette smokers, and both of them such beautiful people. My mother was a runway model, live fashion show model, gorgeous, gorgeous woman. And my father was a gorgeous debonair. Oh my goodness, what a handsome man. And my father came from a very, very well-to-do, prominent family in Philadelphia, Black society. And I was blessed to have grandparents who had a 13-acre country property outside of the city where we could all spend time in the summers and have family gatherings there and birthdays and Christmas and family dinners. And there was room enough in that house for all of us, both sides of the families to gather. It was an amazing place full of freedom and fun. And right next to that property was a small private airport. And that was where I first had my experience of flying because you could go and book a private little plane. And my dad made sure that every one of us had the opportunity to go flying every summer. So, from this point of view, from people looking at my life, I was showing up as privileged, still had some challenges, but I was privileged. And my family was able to be very coherent in structure. And my mother and father decided to buy a home in an all-white community because of the schools. They knew that we would get a good quality education. And that brought its own series of challenges. And that is when I began to open my mouth and scream and shout and not cooperate. So when I was 5, I nearly drowned at another family gathering in another enormous country property, friends of my parents, because my parents' set were doctors and lawyers and educators and judges. And so that was their social set. And so we're at this family gathering, and there's an in-ground swimming pool. Now, I eventually became a mother, and one of the first things I did when my first child was 9 months old was drown proof that baby. Okay, we took mommy and baby swimming classes, and I drown proofed that kid. My parents, neither of them could swim. And in looking back on that day, I wondered where were they that they would allow me to be unsupervised in a pool. And I do mean unsupervised. My mother was reading a magazine, drinking a gin and tonic and smoking, and my dad was doing God knows what, talking to the guys. And I'm floating around in an inner tube, just paddling around. I've never been in this environment before. It's totally new to me, and I don't know a darn thing about it. And I end up bobbing over to the deep end of the pool and in this inner tube, which I was perfectly happy. I was kind of having a cool time checking everything out. Well, my cousin happened to be an excellent swimmer, as most of the other children at this gathering were. And he and his group of boys, they were playing a game, and they determined that they absolutely had to have the inner tube that I was floating around in. And so my cousin just swam over and grabbed it. And I was in 6 feet of water. And I was a scrawny kid, and I sank like a stone. And I had no idea what was happening. And I started to scream. And I watched huge bubbles floating up to the surface. But because I didn't have any orientation or any understanding of what was going on, I didn't know that if I tried to just maybe follow the bubbles, maybe there would be air. Didn't know. That was the moment when my body and I made an agreement, we will always fight for this life. We will fight and fight and fight and fight and fight until we can't anymore. And so I struggled and struggled and struggled and struggled and struggled, just trying to find some air. Fortunately, my sister was not too far away, and she looked down and she saw me under the water, and she knew that I didn't belong there. And I had very long hair at that time and a braid, and she just reached down and grabbed my head and pulled my head up out of the water. When she did that, my body went into a vertical orientation, and my feet could find the bottom of the pool, and I was standing in water below my knees. Everyone in the pool thought that was the funniest thing that they had ever seen, me crying and sputtering. And I'm standing, they thought I was dumber than a rock. Look at you, you're less than 3 feet of water. What's the matter with you? So huge humiliation. No one having any concern for what I was experiencing or feeling. I went over and sat on the shallow end of the steps, the shallow end of the pool. I was a wreck because I knew that something really, really terrible had almost happened to me. And I look over to my mother, and she's looking at me like, oh, you're going to make me put my cigarette down, and I'm going to have to put my gin and tonic down, and I'm going to have to put my magazine down, and I'm going to have to come over and do what with you? And she did. She came over and she sat next to me, and she put her arm like sort of really casually, like she's doing this. And she looks at me and she says, now, dear, don't make a fuss. Nobody drowns in the shallow end of a pool. Not a hug, not a how did this happen, not how are you feeling. And then she got up and she went back to the chaise lounge and to her magazine, cigarette, and gin. Okay? So that moment, sitting on those steps at that pool, I made a very, very serious decision. And that decision was that I was totally alone. And although I was 5 years old, I was going to figure out how to take care of me because nobody else was going to do that, not in a way that was going to keep me safe. That was a lesson that I learned that day that took me decades to unlearn. And the unlearning was painful. So there were other moments like that, going to first grade, knowing how to read and write, cursive, read and write in cursive, and being presented with a book, Run, Spot, Run, see Dick, see Jane. And I went to the teacher and I said, excuse me, is there going to be more than this soon? Because I just let you know, I read books at home, and I write. I have a journal that I keep. I was 6 years old. And she looked at me and she said, well, show me. And I showed her. She said, oh, dear, you can't do that here. And I said, well, why not? Isn't that the point of coming here? And she said, well, you can't do that here because I didn't teach you. Oh, another one. And I went, oh, point taken. This is not a safe place. It's not safe for me. But I got a lot going on. I wanted to dive in, excel, learn, curious, great communicator, compassionate, empathic kid, doing my thing. Third grade, we have a student council. I got elected to be president of the student council because I wasn't shy to speak up in public. And then fourth grade, and then fifth grade. And in fifth grade, we had a woman who I'm sure came to us from I think she might have been a former nun, or she was clearly a woman who had a very interesting perspective on life. And we were in our class, and we'd been having a great time. The whole class, we'd all been together from kindergarten on together. And in fourth grade, we had begun to learn French, and we were doing really cool things, and the teachers were great. And we got into her room, and we said, well, when are we going to resume our French classes? We really like that. And that's when her racial bias popped up and said, oh, no, you can't speak English. We're not going to be doing French classes until you barely speak English, right? Now, by the time we were about at October, the boy in front of me, Dennis, who I Dennis, and we were an interracial group of kids. He's biting his nails down to the quick. This is how unhappy he is. This is not a happy classroom. This is not a good environment. And so I took a stand for my class. I took my being elected as president of my class very seriously. I took a stand and I went down and I asked for an appointment with the principal. And I got a one-on-one appointment with the principal, Mr. Dennis. I said, Mr. Dennis, we have a serious problem in our class with Miss McClanahan. This is what's going on. We're not in, when this is not a good experience. Could you speak to her? Could we maybe have your intervention? I didn't use the word intervention. I mean, after all, I was only in fifth grade, but I said, could you help us? And I left it. I didn't know what he was going to do. And I went back to the room and I didn't say anything to anybody that I had gone and taken this stand for our class. Well, he did speak to her, and it coincided on a time when we also knew it was her birthday, and I had organized a birthday party for her. And all the kids had contributed pretzels and juice, and my mom came in to help, and we got the fourth grade teacher to come and pull her out of the room on some pretext so we could set up this surprise for her. And she comes back into the room and she sees all this, and we go, surprise, happy birthday. She says, well, those of you who have contributed snacks and cards, please come and stand in the front of the room. And she said, just stand here. And she went and she put out a piece of paper on every desk. She said, I want you to write down what you don't like about me. And I watched and I said, oh, cool. Okay, well, I've got my little thing. I'm happy to do that. It's this. Here's my list. Because it's going to be an open, authentic moment, right? No. I watched his other children and I knew what they were feeling. They would not write. They would not trust that part of themselves in that moment. And then she went around and she collected the papers, and then she came back to the front of the room, and those of us were standing in front of the chalkboard that I'd gotten her a birthday card. And she took out her black book, her roll book, and she walked in front of it. She said, I'll take your card. I think you mean it. I won't accept your card. And she would go throw it in the trash and make a mark in her book. And she did this down the line. Thank God the recess bell rang and we went out for recess. The rest of my fifth grade was impossible. And then it seemed like years. And the other little twist of this was that I was a latchkey kid, and I had to go out to a luncheonette every day for lunch because my parents were both working, and my parents had made an arrangement with the luncheonette that I would order my lunch, and then each week my parents would pay the tab. Well, this fifth grade teacher and her best friend ate lunch every day in that luncheonette. And so I would have to go into that luncheonette and just sit there and get through that experience and then walk back to school and just stay connected to myself, stay connected to my heart, stay connected to my classmates. But the things shifted that year. They shifted a lot. And that's when I began to use my voice as a form of power. I'm going to give you just one more thing. There was a time when my family, I mean, this was a very upwardly mobile family. We went to museums, we went to concerts, I had art lessons, I had piano lessons, I had singing lessons. This is what's going on. We were dressed beautifully. My mother and I had custom-made mother and daughter clothing. So everybody thought it was just a really cool situation. So that year, when I was trying to figure out what was what, one day we were going out on one of these Sunday family outings, which I really wanted to go on. And my older sister came in. I can't find I think it was a lipstick or something. And I know you took it. And I want my lipstick. I didn't know where a lipstick was. And I said, I didn't take it. I don't have it. And she was making a lot of noise about this. And I thought, you're accusing me of stealing. And this isn't something that I've done. And I'm not going to tolerate this from any of you. And my parents had a very small bathroom adjoining their bedroom. And I went into the bathroom and I locked the door. And there was only one very small window in that bathroom that even if an adult broke into it, they wouldn't be able to fit through it. So I was in there and they're all trying to get ready to go. And my mother sees the bathroom door closed. Are you in there? Are you in there? And yes, yes, I am. Well, we're leaving now. I said, well, I'm not going until you apologize. I'm not leaving this room until I am apologized to for something I did not do. I'm not leaving. I'm not coming. I was a little kid, but that's how empowered I felt in the core of my being. That's how I felt when I learned that I had to go through it alone and stand up for myself and use my voice and not allow the system of separation to grab me in the core of my being and smash me, that I would not allow that to happen. And so that's what has followed me through my life. And people look at my life and think, oh, she's so lucky. Look at what happens to her. She gets to do this. She gets to go be this and speak in 13 countries and be on stages with Deepak Chopra and go to Russia and work in hospitals doing energy healing when nobody knows what the heck that is. And she just then did retreats in Greece and Ireland and England and Scotland, and like this is the luckiest person on the planet. Well educated, won a scholarship to private boarding school, genius IQ, won a scholarship to 4 years of paid college. Went to my father and I asked him, I needed books to go to that college experience. And I asked my father for $50. I had won a fully paid City of Philadelphia scholarship to the college of my choice. I had done the academics work. I was a merit finalist. And my father said, no, he wouldn't give me $50 for books. Okay. Okay, well, I guess I'll go ask my grandma Keen because she probably will do that. And she did. This is what made me fireproof. And this was just the beginning. And I'm so glad that Marty's here because Marty has this amazing process. She's an expert in the area of divorce. And another one of my incredible trials by fire was being married to an incredibly abusive man who coerced me to have an abortion that I didn't want to have on threat of taking our 2-year-old child and disappearing. Right? Goes on and on and on and on. And I walked away and I kept my core of who I am and I would let no one break that. I didn't never allow that to be broken. And that is why I'm sharing with you the incredible power of choosing to be fireproof because you've all been through similar. The details are different, but the process has been the same, which is a system of separation trying to smash you from the inside out. And you feeling alone and persecuted and misunderstood and deeply confused and hurt. So that's a little bit of my story. And I wanted to share that with you because everyone that I've invited to speak has a solution or some part of that story that may be part of your story. And what I am really hoping with this Fireproof Summit concept, leadership concept, which I will do again, because this is the virus. This is what we need to go viral, that we're all here for each other and that no other little child should have to go through any of this alone or not have a safe place to go where they would know their value, where they would be respected and appreciated. And for young girls and for women who have gone through the genetic experience. Now, I will share with you that I belong to every race in the world. My genetics are everybody. And I think that that's one of the reasons that the system of separation hit me so hard. Hit me so hard because who else would be a voice for unity when I woke up to the full power of my being everyone on the planet genetically? Is that a voice they would want to be heard? I don't think so. So I want to validate every one of you for your choices, for your voice, for your strength, for your sense of purpose, for your gifts, for how you meet other people where they are when they're in extremis, and we need one other beating heart to just be with us while we get through it, while we heal, while we become fireproof, and we be able to stand, we can stay, and we can walk away. And we have the trust in ourselves to know when each one of those things is an appropriate action. And we do not need anyone else's approval or permission to go forward in what is best for us, knowing that we go forward with a sense of what is good for me. If I am aligned, if I am in my heart, if I am connected with spirit, cannot possibly be anything but good for everyone else. Okay, so that's what I wanted to share with you. And I want to thank you. Everybody take a breath. Everybody take a breath. And know and feel right now, all of us together, your value and your purpose and your birthright bliss and your brilliant resilience. And feel how much all of what is natural in this world is grateful to you for being exactly who you are. Okay, that is a glimpse into my journey of transformation. And this is the journey that I share as a healer, as a speaker, as an author, as a life coach. And this is what I offer in my VIP day. It's like, let's just find you in your right order and right timing and divine purpose so that you can always have a place to fall back inside of yourself that is safe. And you have a vibration that you carry that will help you connect with other people who know your true value. They can feel it, and they don't try to dismiss it or deny it or distort it or destroy it. Right? Can I get a hands raised on that? Can I get like a hallelujah on that, please? So I encourage you to take full advantage of everything that you're going to hear and have an opportunity to learn, and all these amazing speakers and leaders that you're going to have an opportunity to connect with, to go further on the specific journey that is so unique to you. Now, I will also share during this time when the system of separation was trying to smash me, I never felt disconnected from my source, ever. Ever, ever, ever. I always could go back to that place and feel this is home. This is home. And what I am learning is how to bring home through me into this place. I knew when I was 8 years old and I left the church, I got it, that we're living in hell. It was so clear to me. It was so clear. But I also got that I had a difference to make and that I would do it. So there you are. Now, if anybody has anything they want to share, because what we're doing is we're sharing our breath. We're sharing our experience because it's cellular. And when Catherine is talking about the 5 elements, we are also these 5 elements and more in our bodies. We cannot allow the system of separation to take that from us any more than we can allow it to smash our insides. So I want to share with you the empowerment of who you are in that, and maybe be an ally, maybe be a source of occasional comfort, maybe be a friend in wisdom, maybe a teacher or a guide, maybe a healer when your body is trying to work itself out of the system of separation and you've become sick. That's what that is. It's just your body trying to find the way out. And we all need help with that, one way or another. Okay,